Welcome, everyone. We've all seen the potential of enterprise AI, but as organizations move from testing to full-scale deployment, they're hitting a wall called the governance gap. The reality is that large language models are natively context blind. For example, they don't know the user who is asking the question or what that person is actually allowed to see. Today, we're moving past the hype to talk about AI resilience and why your infrastructure needs to act as a secure gateway if you want to scale AI safely. I'm David Guerra, a senior product marketing manager at Liferay, and joining me to talk about this subject is my colleague, Andrew Jardine, a principal solution architect. Andrew works with enterprise teams to navigate the intersection of massive data systems and secure user experiences. In our conversation today, Andrew is going to help us break down the guardrails needed to scale AI effectively and safely, how to empower your staff to build AI tools without the risk, and why role-based permissions are your biggest advantage. Andrew, thanks so much for being here today. Are you ready to dive in?
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here, David. I think, what we're seeing now is that teams are, generally excited about AI. They're starting to have budgets, they've got use cases, and they're ready to go, but then they hit that security review and the whole program stalls or just stops dead, actually. Now, the good news is I think that the architecture that you need to solve this problem is not some far off illusion or breakthrough. That it actually exists today. And I think, over the course of this conversation, we'll be able to unpack it and help others understand.
All right. With that said, Andrew, let's start with the AI transparency challenge. So in regulated industries, there's a fear that the AI is this sort of black box that provides a result without a recipe. For example, we can't always audit the AI's reasoning in real time. So Andrew, how do we solve that problem? What can we actually audit and trace to make sure we adhere to compliance guidelines like the EU AI Act, for example?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's a fair fear, but I think I kind of want to challenge the framing a little bit. And I think realistically, we've been living with unexplainable decisions for a long time. I mean, any complex human expert call is opaque in the same way, right? If I think about somebody that I know is an expert in a particular domain, I'm going to ask them questions and they're going to give me answers, and I don't necessarily know how they formulated those answers. So I think with the only thing that's really different is that with AI, the scale of what kinds of questions you can ask and the speed at how quickly you get responses is really what's changing. Now, trying to audit the model's reasoning in real time is, in my opinion, the wrong battle. I think we can all agree that LLMs are probabilistic by design. So what we mean by that is that two similar prompts can produce, let's say, slightly different reasoning chains. And what we can audit, or what the auditors, regulators, and the business actually care about, is really four things. One, we want to make sure that the AI, we want to know what data the AI used when it formulated its answers. The second thing would be the instructions or the prompts that were given. So we want to understand what the user asked and what kind of criteria or guardrails they try to put in place. We want to know who's making the requests, that user context, which is super important. And then lastly, I think we want to know what action did the AI agent take to actually formulate the response that it gave you. So what tools did it use? What sources did it reference? Now, I think this is probably familiar, boring audit territory that can solve these problems. We're talking about logs, we're talking about inputs, outputs, and basically identity. This is not some exotic, unexplainable AI breakthrough. It's something that we already have and we already actually use today. We've used it for years, long before AI became what it is today. So I think the shift is, don't try to peer inside the model's head. You want to surround it with well-instrumented interfaces that capture every input and every output, and then tie those inputs and outputs to the user identity. Let's say the recipe that the AI is using, that lives where it belongs, in your system of record, not inside the model itself.
Yeah. Okay, so for my second question, Most AI tools are designed to be as helpful as possible. How do we prevent that helpfulness from bypassing traditional security? After all, we don't want users to see information that they're not authorized to see.
Yeah, so this is actually like the single biggest governance gap that we're seeing right now in enterprise AI today. There's actually a Gartner survey that was done last summer that found that 40% of IT leaders had actually delayed their Copilot rollout by 3 months or more, specifically because of problems like permission oversharing. So here's what's happening. The LMs are context blind about who is asking. They see a prompt, they see whatever data has been retrieved into the context, and then they try to maximize their helpfulness with both, right? So if you've built a knowledge retrieval pipeline that pulls from, let's say, shared data stores, and one user can see the executive salary spreadsheet and another can't, the model doesn't actually know the difference between those two calls. It happily summarizes the confidential data for whoever's asking. Now, the fix sounds obvious once you hear it. The LM never checks permissions. The backend does. So an AI agent is really, you have to think of an AI agent as just another user, albeit a very fast and very chatty one, but they're effectively acting on someone else's behalf. So every call it makes to your system has to go through the same identity and authorization layer your existing applications use. OAuth 2.0, delegated authorization, user impersonation, these are all mature things, 20-year-old plus machinery, and we know it works. So we need to start applying that to AI. There's actually a cautionary tale that I want to reference here, which is the ServiceNow body snatcher vulnerability that was disclosed at the end of last year. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that story, but their virtual agent integration let an unauthenticated attacker impersonate any user just from an email address, which basically allowed them to bypass the multi-factor authentication and the single sign-on sort of protocols. So that's exactly what happens when you try and move the permission check into the actual AI layer itself, instead of just allowing the platform that's being accessed to control it. So the principle I keep coming back to, if a user isn't authorized to see a record, the AI, which is basically behaving as that said user, should never know it exists either.
Got it. Because I don't know, from using AI tools, it seems like if the AI knows that it exists, there's a potential for it to use that data source, right?
Oh, yeah. It wants to be as helpful as possible, effectively, right?
Yes. Yep. How do we scale AI services safely to external audiences like our partners and our customers?
Yeah. So I think we have to break this down to a couple of different buckets. If we think about employee-facing AI, that's like the training wheels. So the real value and the real risk actually shows up when you extend your AI outside your firewall to partners, customers, dealers, resellers, all these different other groups of people. And the reason it gets harder is simple. With employees, you have a homogeneous identity story, right? One directory, one SSO, one set of roles. I know who this person is, and I know what they should and shouldn't be allowed to do within my organization.
Right.
The moment you open AI to external audiences, you've got multiple identity domains, different trust levels, different data sharing contracts. There's going to be regulatory constraints that vary by region. And I mean, fundamentally different answers to what is this user allowed to see and do. So if we build on that and we build an AI, build it into our AI services, so each AI service is going to take care of this on its own, it's a virtual nightmare. And it's where most of the governance debt starts to really accumulate. So the pattern that actually works best is don't build AI services on a flat surface. Build them on a platform that already understands multi-audience access, that has the concept of accounts and organizations and external collaborators. It understands role hierarchies, and it actually brokers the communication to those back-end systems that you want to connect to. The AI service then just becomes the thin layer that sits on top of all that security that's already been battle tested. Now, there's one thing that is probably worth flagging as part of this discussion. That is that scaling AI externally means scaling your blast radius, so to speak. The costs, the prompt injection, throttling, abuse, there's all sorts of areas you need to consider. I was actually having a conversation with a colleague of mine recently, and he made a really interesting observation where he said, uh, things like common questions should actually have cached responses. You need strict throttling over your AI services to protect AI endpoints from bad actors, people who are trying to, abuse the service by sending it far too many queries. And of course, you have to plan for that agent to agent communication, which is right around the corner, of course, because your partners, they're already building or they already have their own AI agents now. And so you need to have trust protocols between them. All this stuff is coming really fast. You need to manage not just how you're going to be using AI inside your organization, but how it's going to connect to external parties and the cost implication that can come with that, not just security.
Got it. Wow, Andrew, I hadn't even thought about the whole concept of partners and customers having their own AI agents. So it's not just them as individual users, but having agents come and do the asking, I guess, for them.
Yeah, I mean, machine to machine communication is a real future that is not that far off.
Okay, so my next question is, how can we make it easy for employees to build AI-driven services without needing a team of security experts for every project? I mean, organizations want to ideally scale their AI quickly, but if the tools are cumbersome or if they need a bunch of experts to do it, it's going to take a long time and it's not going to be easy to test and iterate. So how do we make it easy for employees?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can both agree that if every AI project needs a dedicated security architect, then you've already lost, right? You'll build 5 AI services in a year, and then in the meantime, your competitors are going to build 500. So the goal really is to make building an AI service feel more like configuring a form rather than a security design document. And that's really a platform question. Can a business technologist, so that's, let's say a marketer, an ops person, a solution engineer, a support team lead, can those individuals stand up an assistant, give it a clear set of instructions, and then point at the right data sources and ship it in, let's say a day without ever having to invoke InfoSec, ideally? That's really the bar that we're trying to set here. So there's 2 things that have to be true, at least in my opinion, for that to work. First, the integration layer has to be standardized. The industry is already converging on the MCP or Model Context Protocol as the standard way that LMs are going to talk to enterprise systems. It handles tool discovery, authentication, the permission delegation through OAuth, all those different pieces. Every major AI vendor now supports it. And over, I think it's 13,000 MCP servers were launched on GitHub in 2025 alone. So creators get a huge library of pre-wired integrations instead of having to code each one that they need from scratch. That's part one. The second part would be something, again, the same discussion with that same colleague, that he made another really good point. And he said, the creator needs to be able to define instructions and guardrails right in the UI, not in the code base. So for example, this agent can only access the support knowledge base. It will not discuss pricing, and it will escalate medical questions to a human. Guardrails that are baked right into the agent's behavior and that are visible to governance reviewers, right? So not buried somewhere, deep in the code. I think when the platform handles the identity and the integration plumbing, and the creator configures the behavior and scope, you get the speed and the safety put together. Without the platform, though, honestly, if you just get one, and it's usually speed, usually regretted, because it often comes at the price of cutting corners and, let's be honest, botched security.
Right. Yeah, that's where that speed can reveal information that you didn't want revealed and do it a lot faster.
Yeah, definitely.
So how can the underlying digital infrastructure act as that primary security layer for AI services?
Yeah, I think we've kind of been circling around this theme for most of our discussion. Right. So I don't know, let me just be direct and say that the most underappreciated security control for enterprise AI is actually the platform itself that the AI is sitting on top of.
Yeah.
So if I think about what a mature enterprise platform, in my particular world, a DXP already does. It holds the identity of every user. It has internal and external references to users. It knows what roles they have. It brokers connections to often dozens of backend systems. Those could be CRMs, they could be commerce stores, they could be knowledge bases, document repositories, you name it. It has a permissions ledger that every request runs through, and it already produces audit logs. So every one of those capabilities is exactly what an AI service needs. So if you don't have a platform in that position, then you're going to have to build it all yourself. Probably badly, probably twice, probably per AI service, no less. So there's a lot of errors and fixing errors that's going to go into your costs. So, or worse, actually, if you don't even notice it, you'll skip it, and your AI is going to start to overshare, and you're back to that nightmare that we spoke about a few minutes ago that I referenced from ServiceNow. So the way I frame it is simple. The platform is the security badge for AI. If the AI doesn't get to see anything the badge doesn't grant, and you don't have to reteach security to AI, it inherits whatever rules you've already configured into the platform itself. So there's a UX dimension here that no one talks about enough, and that is that security isn't just the gate; it's the thing that makes the experience personal and trustworthy. Two employees asking the same AI assistant the same question should actually get different answers if their roles entitle them to different information. The platform is basically what makes that possible, and it's what makes it feel natural instead of jarring.
Yeah, Andrew, you know what? Like now that you mention it, I hadn't really thought about that whole aspect of, typing in the question to different users and getting a different answer. But in the context of security and what you just mentioned and different users having different access to different systems, now it makes sense. You're not going to give the same answer to someone from HR, right? That you looking for like salaries to an employee who works at the same company, because
exactly
it's going to be looking at different systems. And so you're going to get a different answer.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. I think we can all resonate with the idea of different people and different roles at different runs in the ladder, right?
Yep.
The kind of organizational information that they are privy to. I mean, there's always going to be things that someone higher up in the organization is aware of that isn't disseminated to the lower ranks for a variety of reasons. And we want the AI to behave the same way. The questions you ask and the answers you get from a person are highly personalized to what you need to know and what you shouldn't know. And we want the AI agent to behave the same way.
Yep. Okay, so we're on our last question, Andrew, and I think this is the one that people, after you've talked about all these things, at the end of the day, it's, organizations want to know how they can go out and do this. And so my last question is, how can organizations tailor AI to their business and scale it quickly and responsibly across their entire enterprise?
Yeah, I mean, this is the burning question. And since it's the last one, I guess let's bring this all home. Everything that we've just talked about, the context blindness, the permission paradox, the multi-audience scaling, empowering creators, the platform, even the security gateway, none of it's theoretical. It's actually what we've been building at Liferay forever, I would say. Our approach rests on one architectural choice. We put Liferay DXP between the LLM and your data. So the LLM calls Liferay's APIs, impersonating the user who's making the call using the standard OAuth 2 protocol. And if that user doesn't have permission to see something, Liferay just simply doesn't return it. So it's not the model's job to check. And that's the whole point, right? You already defined the permissions for the model as part of your digital experience, and the AI is just inheriting that model. So there's four kind of things that fall to this decision from our perspective. For starters, you have inherited permissions. The AI automatically respects the account, the role, the site permissions, whatever it is that you've configured. There's no reteaching the model every time. No custom permission layer per AI service. It's all baked into the platform itself. Then you have the identity buffer. So every AI request from an employee, a partner, a customer, it doesn't really matter. It all flows to the same Liferay identity management layer. The system will surface only what the user is allowed to see. This is the same behavior you see if you yourself as a user starts to click around the particular site. They're going to be records, let's say in a search result, that you would see that maybe I wouldn't. AI has the same kind of behavior for us. So that's the antidote to the oversharing problem that delayed the 40% of Copilot rollouts, or again, the ServiceNow reference that we had earlier. We also have, as part of this solution, seamless service creation with a new product we have rolling out called AI Hub. Now, MCP is the standardized way to do all this stuff at the platform level, and AI Hub lets your teams build new AI agents without writing integration code or security code. It's actually really cool. I did a webinar earlier today for the private beta group, and what we showed them was that they can create new agents simply by configuring a web form. So they provide instructions on what they want this agent to be responsible for. They can set the guardrails or the restrictions for that agent, what tools are allowed to use through a simple workflow designer. It's super cool. And actually, the best part is the development of new agents drops from, let's say, months to just hours.
Wow.
And the last of the four, I think, that I would want to highlight is probably the accountability trails. The idea that every AI interaction, prompt, data access, response, user, it's all logged as part of the platform. So you referenced earlier the EU AI Act and the NIST IRMF documentation. Our platform is going to address those specific requirements that are coming. And I mean, that's really what regulators are going to start to be asking for as of, I think it's this coming August.
Okay. Andrew, we've come to the end of our show here, as we say. Thank you so much, for helping us bridge the governance gap. It's become clear to me that scaling AI safely and responsibly really comes down to having that secure architectural foundation in place that you talked about. Yeah. To everyone watching, thank you for joining us. And if you'd like to keep the conversation going, you can reach out to Andrew or myself on LinkedIn or via our email. In the meantime, though, if you want to dig in deeper into our AI hub or how Liferay DXP handles the security layers we talked about today, head over to liferay.com. Andrew, thanks again. I think you covered this subject in great detail. Is there anything that you'd like to add before we sign off today?
Maybe just one thing. I would just say that, I didn't mention it. I just kind of mentioned AI Hub in passing, but AI Hub isn't a bolt-on. It's I would call it like the safe on-ramp that sits on top of a platform that's already engineered to be secure for multiple audiences and digital experiences. That's our Liferay DXP. So if your AI strategy is being held, let's say, hostage, maybe a bit dramatic, but if it's being held hostage by your security team's concerns, and let's be honest, I mentioned earlier, a lot of those plans are being held hostage. Then this architecture is the thing that might allow you to unblock those blocks. Other than that, I would just say, thanks, David, and to everyone who's watching or listening. The message I'd like to leave you with is that, this doesn't actually require a science project. The standards to make all this work do exist. The protocols exist. The platform pattern exists already. So what it takes is a decision to put your security layer in front of the model and not behind it. And at Liferay, we take security very seriously, so much so that we've already been doing all these things we've talked about today for many, many years. Okay, Andrew, thank you so much. And thanks everyone who joined us today. You know how to get a hold of us. You know where to get more information if you need it. Thanks again, and bye for now. Thank you.